Cornel West speaks very, very highly of you. You
Oh,
are
okay.
a Green Party member.
Yep.
Do you agree with Cornel West's recent decision to not seek the Green Party nomination?
I do not. I was very, very disappointed. I thought it could have been huge politically for the country, for the Green Party, for the left in general, for him. But for whatever reason, I get the feeling he hadn't really thought it through and it was something he wasn't really ready to do. And so I was extremely disappointed. The Democrats, by the way, in New York State, have gotten the Greens off the ballot. We don't have a ballot line anymore. Andrew Cuomo, one of his parting gifts,
Mm.
they raised the threshold for getting nominating petition signatures, and it's this huge number that we can't reach. Um, and absent someone like, even with a big name person like West, it still would have been hard, but it gave us some possibility. Uh, all the issues of that the Green Party stands for, that people want and agree with. There was something about having this well-known person that there were people I was surprised who said I would vote for Cornel West. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. And now we're back to square one. Who would that be? The people whose names have been mentioned are people I don't want. I don't want to spend time talking about people I don't want.
No, sure. Yeah.
But uh, it's so we're back to square one, scrambling, and New York is not alone. Other states have gotten the Greens off the ballot. So trying to the biggest of we say third parties as if there's only three, but the biggest non-duopoly party that had the grassroots support and the ability to get people on the ballot. Um, now it's like, who's going to run? Who should that be? um, you know, and I think West, and I appreciate his. He gave me a blurb for my book, which is something everybody wanted, right? A Cornel West blurb for your book, and he's a very kind person. He's very generous with his time. I think he's really a grassroots person, and he'll turn up in places you wouldn't expect. The small local groups giving support for some issue, and I respect him for that, but I wish he had either thought it through before he did it or had just stayed in and worked, the bumps of something new. And it was new for him. And I suspect that, for a person, he's not a young man, for someone of his age, to have this new experience of a political campaign. I mean, I can't speak for him, but it was personally disappointing, and I think it's a lost opportunity for left politics and for black politics too.
I agree with everything you just said, but when you say he didn't think it through, like, do you mean running with the Greens or do you mean running for president in general or a little bit of both?
I think running in general.
Mhm.
I suspect, and I have not talked to him, but I've heard some things that this you have to have a kind of discipline, and you're the boss, but you also have to listen to other people who've run a campaign before. Um, and I think that was hard for him to do, and it would have meant a lot of travel. It would have meant so if he said something, tweeted something years ago that's not in keeping with the Green Party, just as an example, now you've got to explain yourself. It's like, well, did you not agree with that then? Or do you know this is not something Greens can go with now? So there were some complications like that. And I think it was something he had not considered. The reality of a presidential or any political campaign is quite different. If you have a campaign manager, you the candidate is the boss, but the campaign manager gets to tell you what to. That's part of their job. Do this, don't do that. Talk to this one, don't talk to that one. We need to go here, but not there, and this is why. And I suspect he's a person who's been his own boss, as an academic and an author, and it must have been hard for him to to, um, you know, do these things that were very, very different from what he had done before.
Well,
So
why do you think he decided to run independent as opposed to running as a Green? Like, why do you think he concluded that would be easier?
I I hate to say this, but because it's not really a campaign. If
Hmm,
how's he going to get on the ballot? How are you going to get on the ballot without a party behind you? The only person I can remember was Ross Perot, but he was a billionaire,
right.
So is this really a campaign? Is it just a write-in thing? What is it now? It Does he still want to do this at all? I don't know if he may have changed his mind and said, I didn't know this is what this was going to be like. And and even the Green Party has its rules. He wasn't being handed the nomination. He had to
Right.
campaign for the nomination. He had to travel around the country and meet people and make the case. I think it's still I can't think of anybody who, absent something unexpected, who would have gotten the Green Party nomination and not him. But I think, once the reality of it, he saw the reality of having this campaign and the kind of work involved. I think that's why he did it. And, so what is it to run as an independent if you don't have that apparatus behind you?
No, I mean, I ponder that too. I mean, to me, I did not understand the choice. I thought that, and I like Cornel West a
I
lot.
do too.
I will likely be voting for him. I mean, and I say likely because I don't know who else is going to be there. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next. But I mean, right now, if the election were today, I would vote for Cornel West, whatever was next to his name, because he, in my opinion, is by far the best candidate. But
Uh-huh.
but you know, I did not understand the choice for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. I mean, I have very little enthusiasm about the 2024 presidential election because look around. But one little shimmer of hope was that, you know,
Yeah.
and doing my best Obama there. There's a little bit of hope, Margaret. There's some hope, but but the one sliver of hope was that maybe the Greens would get to 5% with Cornel West, and
And
now
that was
that's out the window.
it is out the window. And in New York, whoever the Green Party nominee is, I won't be able to go into a voting booth and vote for that person anyway. It's going to have to be a write-in effort. Um, but I'm writing in somebody. There's no way in hell I would vote for Joe Biden. No way. I didn't vote for him the first time. Um, and becoming a Green was a big deal for me. I was a registered Democrat. I would vote for Greens when I could, when there were Greens on the ballot. But giving up that Democratic registration, New York is one of those states with a closed primary process. You can't vote in a primary unless you belong to that party. And uh, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. If you're not a member of a party, how are you choosing the nominee? I sort of get that. But then, of course, there are always these primaries, and there are people I want to win, and now I'm out, and the Greens aren't even on the ballot.
Yeah,
But I
no, it's
wanted to
hard.
be brave. I wanted to be as brave as I was telling other people to be, and to belong to a party that talked about the things I want. They weren't like liberal on this, but warmongering over here. I I I couldn't stand by that anymore. I really couldn't. Um, and building the Green parties, it's difficult though. It's difficult. I mean, listen, if it was easy to build a left party, somebody would have done it already, right?
Right.
Um, but I do want to help and build the Green Party in any way that I can. I'm also on the interim steering committee of a group, Green Eco Socialist Network. Um, Eco socialism is something people should be talking about. It's something that people can take action on. Having cooperatives, a solidarity economy, as it's called, those are things that people are doing and can do more of. So it's small d democratic activity that can make a difference in people's lives locally. So I'm still committed to that. Um, but this presidential election, I'll be writing in someone. That's for sure. It'll be remain to be seen who that will be.
Yeah, it's really it is something. I mean, and with what you were saying about the primaries, I mean, I live in California, so I'm just no party preference here in California because we have like asterisk open primaries because basically it's an open primary unless they randomly decide they don't want it to be. Like the party can decide at any point, oh, it's not going to be an open primary, and then it's not.
Oh, really?
But and I think in principle, like, yeah, it makes sense if you're not in the party, why should you help decide the nominee? But when you apply it to the United States, it's just not a feasible thing because we just have a system where there's basically only two parties. And, so what do you think? What needs to happen to really build up the viability of just third parties in general?
I think people have to find a way to break out of indoctrination. First of all, I think people have to realize you are being indoctrinated
Mhm.
and find ways to break out of that, because I think it's the biggest thing that keeps people from in being involved in smaller parties. They're just afraid. I don't want to help, the Republicans win, but it's on them. The other thing about Americans, the difference between Democrats and Republicans are a lot more political. Democrats are less political. So Republicans know they should fight for every seat in every legislature across the country. Democrats sometimes just want to feel good, just want to feel better, or something. And so they don't articulate the importance of that political activity. So people who are on the left who vote Democratic, it's sort of by default. They don't demand much. They don't have a really political point of view. They don't, the rough and tumble of politics is not really them. So I think Democrats need to become a lot more political, and I think then would be less fearful um, of straying outside of the fold of the duopoly. And those of us who speak out, we have those uncomfortable moments we talked about, but we got to plow through it. And we have to say this is BS. I mean, Biden, really? He's in Israel now. Um, Israel turned off the electricity and water in Gaza, and I don't care what they say. I believe they bombed that hospital. Um, and he's like, well, we back Israel. And we know they didn't do it. Our intelligence says they didn't do it. I don't believe they looked at a damn thing, to be perfectly honest. But uh, we have to say that's not acceptable. Everything they do is in our name. $4 billion to Israel. I don't know how
Mhm.
many billions to Ukraine, and now they've run out of weapons. By the way, so it's kind of funny, ironic, funny, not hilarious, funny.
I think everyone knew what you meant, but yeah. In
um,
case anyone was confused.
um, and I just think people have to be less fearful, but the indoctrination is so strong
Yeah.
that that's the hardest thing, that people here are propagandized
Oh,
just to a
big time.
terrible a degree most people don't want to acknowledge. But and sometimes somebody's got to say, well, we're propagandized, and somebody's going to look askance and give you side eye or get mad at you, or any number of things. And then you have to reach the point where you say, I don't care. That's how angry I've been about the what Israel is doing in Gaza. It, by definition, collective punishment against the civilian population is a war crime.
Mhm.
Period.
And
According to
and
the
they don't
Geneva.
they never tell you that side of the story. I mean, you
No.
don't get that. I think a lot of people, and just regular people, they don't realize that that's what's happening.
Yep.
They don't realize that it's like, no, no, no. They're they're starving and cutting off supplies, and people who had nothing to do with anything. They're just trying to live their lives.
Right.
And half of them are children. What did they do? Like it's but a lot of people just they have no idea that that's what's happening.
They don't, and I'll tell you why. It's our media
Yeah.
who work hand in hand with the state. I saw on Twitter yesterday, Anderson Cooper is
Oh boy.
in Israel, I think, and he was reporting on the hospital bombing, and he said something about a lot of civilian lives, and then he stops himself and says, "A lot of lives lost." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Why would you stop yourself from saying civilians when that's the truth?" That's because we've been told that the lives of Palestinians don't matter. They're all guilty. Little kids are guilty. Old ladies are guilty. And if you use the word civilian, you are speaking against US foreign policy. And that's another reason. It's like the corporate media, they just it's like, you may as well just read a State Department handout as spend any time watching the news, because all they do is
Because they just read
repeat
it to you.
repeat
They
what they
just
say.
read you the press release.
And that was it was important to see, but I think those of us who have left politics, we cannot give up. We have to go through those uncomfortable moments with friends and family and find the best way we can. I think it's not hyperbole to say the world's depending on us. It's depending on somebody to say the emperor's not wearing any clothes. He's naked. So that's what I want to end on that upbeat note of what it is that we can do.
So, in closing, tell people where they can go to learn more about you, where they can find your book. Just plug away.
Sure. My book, Prejudential Black America and the Presidents, you can get from Steerforth Press. You can get it directly from Steerforth Press or from Barnes and Noble or that big book site that starts with the letter A. You can get it from any one of those places. Also on Audible, and also part of the place that starts with the letter A. blackagendareport.org for now. Publish every Wednesday. And I'm on Twitter, Freedom Ride blog. I'm also on Blue Sky now. Margaret Kimberley on Blue Sky.
Margaret, thanks so much for doing this. Always great to talk to you.
Thank you so much. It's been great. Thanks for having me.